Hello people, welcome to Life Study Library. I'm your host Layosh. In this channel, you can learn about these interesting and life-changing science and psychology that can greatly improve your lives. So if you're interested, please make sure to subscribe to Life Study Library and like this video. Okay, so today's topic is about health and diet and gluttony. It is such a common scene for us modern humans to be fighting against that giant bald meatball who wants to eat everything. But all jokes aside, junk food consumption is without a doubt a major problem that is slowly leading humanity towards destruction. So many of us have had the experience where we swore on our big toe to never eat junk food and stay away from it, but then we give up on that goal as soon as we see a sexy donut or like a hottie cookie. And when we finish eating, we often find ourselves thinking, why does this always happen? Why can't I resist the temptation to splurge on junk food? And to conclude that this is because you don't have enough motivation or willpower is shallow, to say the least. We don't need any more of that on YouTube. So for today, I'll be talking about the science of why we crave junk food. On 2023, a study was done at Yale University and the Max Planck Institute for Metabolism Research in Germany. And these two institutions have figured out that when we eat, our brain reprograms itself to want more of junk food. The link to the study can be checked in my description, but I'll be doing a simple explanation of this, so listen up. So I hope everyone knows that junk food that is high in calories, high in fat and sugar, is not something I can find in the natural world, because all of these junk foods are processed, they're man-made. And the research team hypothesized that by eating these junk food, your brain learns that this is a desirable taste, because, it's like full of sugar and fat, which are addictive. And you, as a result, become addicted and end up overeating. And many people might already know this. What's interesting is that many of the past studies that used mice have shown that eating a lot of these high sugar, high fat food causes the neural network that controls dopamine to kind of reconstruct itself and change it into a network that is addicted to sugar and fat. So eating junk food literally changes your brain, and that brain craves for sugar and fat. So you become more addicted to it. The reason why this is interesting is that healthy eating, or the lack thereof, was often seen in the past as a willpower issue. People thought that those who can't escape the addiction of junk food consumption simply lacked willpower, or they needed to make a habit of eating healthy food. But this study proved that this habitual issue that people were talking about was merely one of the effects that was caused by their brains changing its structure. What I mean is that the core of this issue is not really about behavioral psychology, but was more about neuropsychology. They found this out with mice samples, but was this the same with human samples? To find out, the researchers collected 49 healthy human samples, divided them into two groups, and gave one group a high sugar, high fat yogurt, and the other group a low sugar and low fat yogurt. And one thing to keep in mind is that out of the samples, none were smokers, and none were prescribed a medical drug, and none were overweight. So you can see that despite only having 49 people, these are your standard human beings, which can be represented as a good quality human samples. So these samples were given their respective yogurts, and everything else in their lives were the same as before. And by the way, these high fat and low fat yogurts were given to these samples twice per day through a duration of 8 weeks. And these samples were measured on their brain activity, weight, blood pressure, and blood sugar level. All that. And after the 8 weeks has passed, the samples were tasked to drink this high-fat, high-sugar milkshake. All in a while were measured on their brain activity through MRI scan. So the research wanted to figure out if this new lifestyle of high-fat and high-sugar lifestyle, if this new lifestyle helped establish a new form of neural activity, if this behavioral change did anything substantial to the brain. And the result was very interesting. They figured out that only the group that continued eating the high-fat, high-sugar yogurt, only this group had a higher brain activity level compared to before the experiment. Specifically, this group had a higher activity level of dopamine when their brains were scanned. If you've ever heard about dopamine, you might have the understanding of this as a substance in your brain that increases motivation. So you might think, oh, so this dopamine will increase your motivation and make you resist sweets. But this is actually untrue. Dopamine does not actually increase motivation. Dopamine is actually a substance that increases your expectations. What does this have to do with binging sweets? So when the samples ate the sweets, some of them experienced a higher activity level of dopamine, and these samples ended up wanting more sweets because rather than motivating them to resist eating sweets, the increase of dopamine actually made them want more of them. And this is why sweets and high-fat foods are so addictive. So in regular life, when you eat a cookie or something, you can't stop binging because your brain is producing dopamine, which makes you want more of it by increasing your expectation level. And in contrast, none of these effects were seen in the same samples who had a low-fat, low-sugar yogurt. And at this point, some people might say, okay, well, that's bad, but you can always switch to a low-fat, low-sugar food, right? It's pretty difficult for people to completely abstain from eating sweets and snacks, but the problem is sweets and snacks and food that are high in sugar and fat. So you can totally continue eating the same type of sweets or snacks, just get the ones that are in low fat, low sugar. And some people might be able to think of why this won't work by the time I finish speaking the sentence. So the problem with this option is that now, because your body is so used to you eating that high sugar, high fat snacks or sweets, you become unsatisfied with the same type of snacks with low fat and low sugar. You'll feel as if you're eating a rip-off version of what you truly want. And as a result, these samples have become jaded towards these low fat and low sugar foods and snacks, which are supposed to be the replacement for the high sugar, high fat versions. And you might be able to correctly guess that none of these behaviors were seen in the other low sugar, low fat group. The group that started with the low sugar, low fat food. Okay, I talked a lot, so let's summarize the whole thing. When we eat high fat, high sugar foods, our brain remembers the addictiveness of them. This goes beyond the field of behavioral issue because our brain actually changes its structure and make its network so that dopamine gets released from our brain. And due to the dopamine getting released, we become addicted to foods and snacks that are high in sugar and fat, and loses interest in the same foods or snacks that are low in sugar and fat. And during the experiment period, other factors like weight, blood pressure, blood sugar level, or cholesterol, there were no significant changes in these areas that were considerably affected by whether the sweets were low in sugar and fat or not. But of course, this is because the experiment period only lasted for 8 weeks, so any changes in these areas are thought to have happened due to individual differences. So some people might have not had an effect in areas like blood sugar increase because of their genes or something, while some others had significant change even when the consumption period was the same. But it can still mean that significant changes and damages that you can't ignore, these negative physical effects, can still happen if you continue eating junk food with excessive amount of fat and sugar, and your body learns the attractiveness of these, particularly during this age where regular earthlings do not have to worry about the next chance of when they get to eat. Picking the right choice of food and avoiding the wrong choice of food will most likely be the difference between having and not having life-threatening illnesses, and may even be the difference between life and death itself. So I think this topic is definitely something you should know about. What we must understand is that essentially, in the current society, we are in a sugar-fat surplus, where there's too much sugar and fat for us to handle. But evolution, or in this case, human adaptation, changes much slower. And so if we don't handle food consumption well, we will end up as slabs of meat. And I don't think we want that. And the first thing we should understand is that the desire for us to want more junk food, even after we had an adequate amount of guilty pleasure, is a sign that there's a bug in our brain's computer system. And after hearing me say all this, some of you might have thought, well, yes, it's obvious that overindulgence in junk food is going to mess you up. The part about your actual brain structure changing from it might have been a news to some of you, but the majority of y'all probably already knew that junk food eating is a habitual issue, and by understanding these human tendencies, these businesses profit big time. It was just a conceptual recap with what might have been a bit of a new info, but what I'm trying to say is that there are a lot of YouTube videos talking about topics like these, things that we know in our heads but can't seem to put into action. Many of us already knew about the danger of fat and sugar before watching this video, but we keep coming back to the videos like this because we aren't learning about the actual method to stop indulging in sugar or fat, or any other bad habits for that matter. That's where this channel can come in, because my next video is about the actual method to stop negative habits, and may even promote positive habits that you're trying to create but are struggling to do so. I know I've been teasing this video to you for so long, but at last, we have it. The video that I'll upload next time is about the exact method you can add in your life to make and break habits. Just give me a sec to make it and I'll have it for you for sure this time. But while waiting for that video, you should go ahead and watch some of my other videos in this channel about habit, food and health, and any other random topics talking about these helpful science and psychology. For today's video recommendation, I'll recommend how to make a good habit of healthy eating. Honestly, I could have made this recommended video and the video you're watching right now into one video, but it's okay because neither I or you probably want a video that's too long. But this particular video, it's kind of like a what to do next after you finish watching this video. So this kind of goes back in time, this video a couple of seconds ago, but it talks about this one method that you can incorporate in your life in order to make a habit of healthy food choice. This method that you have to do to make a healthy food choice is eating with strangers. If you want to know the details of how and why this is the case, then make sure to check out this video, How to Make a Habit of Healthy Eating. The link to it can be seen in my description section and will also be in the comment section, so if you are curious about this topic, then go check it out. And then for my recommended book for the day, for today I'll recommend you The DNA Restart. Unlock your personal genetic code to eat for your genes, lose weight, and reverse aging by Sharon Moalem. First of all, this author, Dr. Sharon Moalem, she's a very interesting person, I must say. She's a physician, scientist, and a best-selling author. It's like the ideal career combo for me. If I could choose any amount in any type of career, I would choose something like this. So her book that I recommend to you today, if I had to summarize it in one sentence, I would say that this book is about changing your life by eating food based on your genetic structure. I'll briefly talk about what this is about. So, do you consider yourself as a person who easily gains weight? I consider myself to be this type of person. Despite me and this other person eating the same type and quantity of food, I somehow gain weight and become fat, but this other person looks the same. Yeah, it's unfair, but why is this the case? So, according to the book, this difference of how easily we gain weight or not is based on our genes that have been passed on from our ancestors for generations. So, for example, some people can digest nutrients like carbohydrates easily while others take more time to do so. So, when we eat food like pasta or rice, it gets mixed with an enzyme called amylase, and the starch in our body turns into sugar, and this production of amylase differs among people based on their genetic differences. For instance, Asian people tend to have ancestors that lived by farming and eating grains, and due to the evolution and adaptation formed by this tradition, Asian people now are more able to digest grain food and typically are able to produce this amylase much more than people whose ancestors did not have this tradition. And as a result, people who can produce amylase tend to not gain weight as much. And of course, there's more to talk about even within this one subject of the book, but if that seemed interesting to you, or if you want to know more about this science of diet and food consumption, then I feel like this book is a really good choice for you. Of course, there are other books about other topics of science and psychology that I have for you in the description section, so if you're interested, go ahead and check them out. And also, if this video itself was interesting to you, and if you want to learn more of these interesting and life-changing science and psychology, make sure to like this video and subscribe to Life Study Library. Your support is much appreciated. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Peace out.